Okay, I think we're live in that case. So welcome everyone who's watching, and thank you to OX Poland for organizing the OX Hack event and making this Layer 2 panel possible. This panel will be called How Layer 2 Will Help Scale Ethereum. And my name is Matthias. I'll be moderating. I don't work for a Layer 2 project myself. I'm more of a Layer 2 enthusiast, and I'm really excited to be helping and moderating this panel today because there's quite a diverse range of projects and participants joining. So to start off, I'm going to go around and ask the panel participants to briefly introduce yourself and maybe go into what led you to getting involved in the Layer 2 ecosystem. So to start out, I'll welcome Angela, who's working on ZK Sync. Okay, Angela.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angela, and I lead product at ZK Sync. We are building the first EVM-compatible ZK rollup, and I really want to pursue L2s. I previously worked at MetaMask, but I really wanted to have a first-hand impact in bringing Ethereum to billions of people, everybody with a smartphone. So that's why I'm here.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, so we'll move on. Jacob, who's working on Raiden Network.
Yes, hello. So I'm Jacob. I've been working on Raiden for 5 years. So basically, since the very early days of Ethereum, back then we were certain that today we would see billions of day-to-day payments happening on Ethereum already. We're not quite there yet. Hopefully, we will be there. And I'm also kind of motivated in the same way as Angela, that I want to build stuff that people can use and make people's lives better in the long run.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same mindset. It's going to be exciting to really get payments flying with Layer 2. So to move on to Mikhail working on Polygon.
Hey everyone, thanks for the invite. Pleasure to be here. My name is Mikhail. I'm an IT engineer working in crypto since 2013, I guess part-time, and 2017 full-time. For the past, I guess, 2 or 3 years at least, I'm mainly focused on Ethereum scaling and multi-chain systems, which I interestingly consider two sides of the same coin. And similar, I guess all of us share the similar passion in a sense that scaling technologies are basically absolutely necessary and required to fulfill that promise of Ethereum, basically offering open permissionless platform for this permissionless economy and collaboration to the whole world. And that is something that attracted me very much. And yes, I'm fully focused on it for some time already.
Great, thanks, Mikhail. Yeah, I'm interested to hear more about the kind of multi-chain systems on Ethereum. So moving on, we'll go to Avihu, who's working on Starkware.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Avihu. I'm head of product at Starkware, and I'm in the crypto space for a very long time now. I think more than 10 years. And I joined Starkware at the very beginning, 3.5 years ago. I am very excited to build applications that involves CKP and blockchain and support scaling. And we are focused right now on building Starknet, which is a generalized ZK rollup built with Cairo. And I'm very happy to be here today with all the rest of the great projects that are here in the panel.
Yeah, great. I'm super excited as well. So thank you all for joining. So this panel will be focused on helping those who are wanting to get a high level understanding of the different approaches to Layer 2 scaling. And there's more or less 3 major types of layer 2 scaling, which kind of go into the categories of state channels, plasma, and rollups. These are kind of 3 different paradigms with different strengths, weaknesses, trade-offs. And at this point, we can usually be fairly confident that a scaling project will fall into one of these 3 types of categories, or maybe they'll utilize multiple of these approaches. So the structure that I'm going to do for this panel is to ask everyone to tell a bit more about your solution to scaling Ethereum, where it fits into either plasma, rollups, sidechains. Is it something a little bit different? I want to go into the differences between optimistic and validity-based rollups, state channels, how they differ from different kind of scaling solutions, and also the vision behind Polygon and building a multi-chain Ethereum. So that should cover most of the categories for layer 2 scaling. After that, it will be interesting to go a bit into some drawbacks or challenges. For example, with layer 2 solutions, since they still need to connect to layer 1, they have some of the challenges. They can't totally escape the gas challenges that kind of exist on the base layer. So I want to look at a bit how ETH2 will help solve any of these challenges. And after that, I think we'll take some questions from the audience and we'll wrap up from there. So let's start out with getting everyone to describe their project in a bit more detail, kind of what approach it takes to scaling. So Mikhail, you mentioned a multi-chain Ethereum. Can you dive a bit more into that, where that fits in?
Sure. Thanks. So basically, the way we see the way we see the future of Ethereum is definitely in the future. Ethereum will definitely transform, and it's already transforming into some form of a multi-chain system. So currently, there is this website and several other directories that list live EVM chains, and there is more than 150, I think, live EVM chains with assigned chain IDs. That is a pretty big number. On top of that, we have probably, I would say, hundreds of enterprise implementations of Ethereum. And on top of that, we have dozens, I would say, at this moment, of live layer 2 implementations. So I guess important thing to understand that in general, besides state channels, all layer 2 solutions are also separate chains, if you will, and they are kind of contributing to the Ethereum multi-chain reality. So rollups, plasma chains, all implementations, again, apart from state channels, which are a kind of a different beast, that they are by default bilateral. They can also be N2-1 or etc. We can go into that, but by default, they are not really a separate chain. So other solutions are actually, again, these separate chains. So in the future, we envision many of these implementations, many more of these implementations actually, and all of them together will form this multi-chain Ethereum that we envision. And Polygon is an effort to kind of formalize and introduce structure to that multi-chain reality. So Ethereum, we all know that the strength and the beauty of Ethereum is that organic innovation and development. So you have teams all around the world popping up and starting working on very interesting problems, offering solutions, etc. And that is amazing. But one downside of that approach is that this multi-chain Ethereum, this scaling landscape that we see today is a bit unstructured and sometimes maybe hard to navigate for projects and developers, hard to understand the trade-offs, etc. So Polygon was started as an effort to kind of formalize that multi-chain future that we see already happening for Ethereum. So I hope that kind of makes sense. On the practical level, that actually means that Polygon is a unopinionated framework or platform that aims to offer multiple major scaling approaches. So currently we are only not working and not interested in state channels or payment channels. All other major solutions from side chains, plasma chains, rollups, either based on validity proofs, aka ZK proofs, or fraud proofs. All these things are kind of on our radar. Some of them we already offer, some of them we will offer in the future. So that's kind of where we are at the moment, I guess.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Mikhail. So maybe I'll move in on to Angela just to describe a bit what ZK Sync offers in terms of, is the scaling approach side chains, rollups? Does it fall into state channels? Maybe describe a bit, just where the project fits in and what the future is.
Right. So we are a rollup, and this means that we are moving computation off-chain, but we're keeping some data for every transaction on-chain. So we're changing the way we're using the blockchain, and but we are ultimately still relying on Ethereum for security, and that's more generally in a broad way what rollups do. And then there's two different types of rollups. There's the optimistic rollup and the ZK rollup. And the optimistic rollup uses fraud proofs, and the ZK rollup uses validity proofs. So the optimistic rollup will is secured by economic guarantees, but the ZK rollup will only post transactions that are valid. So we are a ZK rollup, and we started thinking, so ZK Sync started building the ZK rollup quite a while ago because we predicted that there would be a lot, if Ethereum was to reach a lot of people, that there was definitely going to be scaling issues. So then we are always laser focused on security and trustlessness and permissionlessness and like keeping all the important values of Ethereum. And so should I talk a little bit about how ZK rollups work? Or?
Yeah, I feel if you feel it's relevant, then yeah, it's pretty casual. You can go into what you would like to dive into for the panel. It'd be great for the audience.
So the ZK rollup sort of has a ZK Sync contract on the mainnet, which holds all the assets and also this cryptographic fingerprint of the state of the rollup. So you can imagine sort of, here's Ethereum and then here's ZK Sync. And we have rollup blocks with a lot of transactions. And with each rollup block, we will have a root hash, a zero knowledge proof that the state transition from the previous rollup block to this rollup block is correct. And then also this thing called the data availability guarantee. So we publish as call data, all the data necessary to reconstruct the changes incurred by this rollup block. So then you can imagine all these transactions, and then everything is proved by the zero knowledge proof. And it's the ZK Sync main contract holds all the assets and also the cryptographic fingerprint. And then, so the reason why ZK rollups are able to scale more than optimistic rollups is because the ZK rollup only needs to publish the bare minimum, while the optimistic rollup needs to publish a lot of more data per transaction in order for fraud proofs to be possible, to be able to replay everything in case there is a wrong state root that's posted. And so this automatically brings more scalability. So ZK rollups automatically can bring more scalability. But when we think about rollups, we always think about it on two factors. We think about it in terms of validity and data availability. So validity means I cannot mint myself $1 million if like I cannot spend, if I only have $10, I can't spend $1 million. So that's validity. And then the second one is data availability. And this means that So the first one, validity, means you can spend, nobody can spend your funds. But validity means that you can prove that these funds are yours, so you can spend them. So that's data availability. And so an important part in optimistic rollups versus ZK rollups is that optimistic rollups rely on data availability to prove validity. But in ZK rollups, we can split the two from validity and data availability. And a really good benefit of that is we are able to take the data availability actually off chain, because what really limits scaling for ZK rollups, because we used to be limited sort of by the zero knowledge cryptography side, but now we figured out aggregation proofs. So the only thing limiting the scalability that ZK rollups can bring is actually the need to publish call data to Ethereum. And Ethereum fundamentally cannot provide cheap call data until sharding. And you can read more about that in Vitalik's most recent post. But so another way that ZK rollups can scale is by putting this data availability off chain. So now we're no longer bounded by the Ethereum scalability cap. So then when we put data availability off chain, we're actually, what's called, our system is called ZK Porter. And it's going to be secured by the ZK Sync token. And they're going to participate in proof of stake. And you can read more about the security implications of that, and we compare it very in depth in our videos for ETH Global and also an article on our Medium. But something that's really cool is this achieves an exponential gain in throughput. And that's what you need for true scalability, for true like the few cent transactions, not like $10 transactions, because there's so much demand in the space. And it's kind of like the induced demand thing, where if you put another lane in the highway, like there's just going to be more traffic. And so we believe that's going to happen. So we think that ZK rollups have an edge against optimistic rollups because we are able to sort of break through that gap, the Ethereum scalability cap. And what's really cool about ZK Sync 2.0 is that it's not only going to be EVM compatible, it's going to have the ZK rollup side, which has the Ethereum security, but also the ZK Porter side with the off-chain data availability that allows for the few cent transaction. And what's most important is that these two parts are composable and interoperable. So you really won't be able to tell the difference until you start to publish the data, the call data onto Ethereum. So that's the most powerful thing about ZK Sync 2.0.
Great. Yeah, that's super interesting. I was actually watching Alex, who is also working on ZK Sync. He presented a little bit earlier and went into ZK Porter, which I've only just started learning about. So I'm probably going to read into that a little bit more and see if I can get a better understanding. But yeah, thank you for touching a bit on that. Maybe I'll dive into Avihu from Starkware. So maybe you could describe a bit also where your project fits in, and yeah, in terms of is it also rollups, or is it state channels, is it Plasma? Where do you fit in? And yeah.
Yes, sure. I'm very happy to, and I will also try to relate to what both Mikhail and Angela said before. So Starkware, we actually started building a validity proof-based system, both ZK Rollup and Validium, a while ago, and we have already 3 systems running on mainnet, and they're running in different modes. There is a ZK Rollup, which is the YDX, and there are 2 systems with off-chain data availability that we call Validium. One is an NFT market run by Immutable X, and the other one is Diversify. And we also intend to bring few more systems to production in this way. And when I say this way, I mean StarkX, which is a single up roll-up scalability engine. And we are working towards building a general platform that we call Starknet that enables everyone to deploy her own contract written in Starknet smart contract language, Cairo, and be able to enjoy a composable environment, permissionless deployment, and a decentralized Oracle operator. Sorry, And I agree very much with what Angela said before around all the advantages of Zkroll rollup on top of optimistic rollup. And I think that we really, like, when we look on DYDX, which is a system that is pretty young and running on top of our ZK rollup, and we see that some of the changes that they've made are only possible in a ZK rollup. And those changes, for example, I'll just give an example to explain better what it means. Like, what is the exact advantage? So, because in optimistic rollup you have to publish all the data that is needed to verify a transaction. If you, for example, use a price oracle from Chainlink, and now you want Chainlink to provide you the price oracle every minute, then in optimistic rollup you will have to publish each and every price oracle, potentially with all the signatures, so everyone could challenge in a way if any signature is invalid or if any price oracle is wrong. The YDX is a system that is providing basically leverage trading, and it's really, really important that you have oracle prices updates from Chainlink as frequent as possible. So if you'd pay for putting on-chain data every price oracle, you wouldn't get as much scale compared to layer 1. And with our ZK rollup, we would able to take all those price oracles and just prove that we've seen those signatures from those signers of Chainlink, and prove that we got those prices without actually presenting them to the public. So that's a huge amount of data that we don't have to publish on chain. Just to give some numbers, so last weekend was pretty rough in terms of price action, as you all probably know, and there was a lot of traffic in the YDX. So we could actually measure what happens then, and we saw a 2x factor saving in a rollup mode versus layer 1. So that's already something that is up and running, and I think it's very, very impressive. And it's also very impressive to see how you can take a logic that exists today on layer 1 in Solidity and EVM and transform it to something that is more efficient just by knowing that you can take off some of the limited factors. Like, I don't want to publish signatures. I don't want to publish too frequent price oracles. Well, now you can do that, and you don't have to use the same logic. You can actually change your logic and get a better protocol. I think that's one wonderful thing. The other thing that I wanted to bring more into the surface, like Angela rightfully talked about security and relying on the security of layer 1, and this is something that people normally see as an advantage of a rollup. I did wanted also to say something that's also related to what Mikhail said, that we actually think that one extra advantage that we have is that we can talk with the layer 1 instantly. So if you want to relay a message or withdraw a token or talk with the layer 1 contract from layer 2, we are capable of doing that just every time we submit a proof. And this enables to be like kind of crazy things, like you don't have, for example, to necessarily fragment your liquidity. You can communicate between two protocols in a very fast way, like two ZK rollups can communicate and transfer messages in a very efficient way. And I'm pretty sure we'll see more than that. And Mikhail spoke about multi-chain Ethereum, or sometimes people talk about fragmentation of liquidity. I think in our solution, we put the effort to make sure that the liquidity fragmentation and the capital inefficiency will go to minimum.
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting topic with liquidity and on layer 2 and stuff like that. And that kind of leads me to the next project, Raiden. So I was hoping that Jacob could dive a bit into the differences. Because ZK Sync or Starkware, they have quite a few similarities, whereas state channels are a bit of a different approach. Can you dive into just a high level of what state channels are, what a state channel network is?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as already mentioned, state channels is quite different to rollups in general, both to CK and optimistic. So state channels is more based on local consensus, as we kind of call it. Like you open, for instance, a channel between two partners, and these two partners do then sign off-chain messages to each other that can be interpreted by a smart contract on-chain in the end to kind of settle or verify the data that they are transferring back and forth. So what we do in Raiden is that we do not only have two parties in one state channel, or one state channel basically consists of that, but we can do mediated transfers. So we can build up an entire network of these state channels, which means that Alice can basically transfer to Dolores through Bob and Charlie without having a direct channel with Dolores. So through this, we can do ERC20 payments to basically everyone who participates in this network and who have open channels. And then, of course, we get a bit into the question that was just talked about with capital efficiency or capital inefficiency. Whereas, like, one of the, I believe, drawbacks of state channels at the moment, or payment channels, is that it is somewhat capital inefficient, since at least in Raiden, before you get an efficient network, you should have like a couple of channels open, and most of the time the capital you deposit into these channels are just idling. We are, however, looking into some solutions for this, but this is one of the probably one of the bigger differences for a user perspective between state channel payment channels and something like CK Sync or any other roll-up solution. But yeah, in general, Raiden is made for payments and ERC20 payments, and this is what we are focusing on and specializing in. And we want to build a network that can do a lot of payments very well and fast. Like, we scale linearly, so the more participants in the network, the more transactions per second.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. Do you think you could see maybe at some point in the future that you could run a payment network like Raiden Network, for example, on a different layer 2 solution, maybe CK Sync or Starkware or some other type of solution?
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible in the future, and we share the same problem as most other solutions. That right now the most expensive part of using something like Raiden is the interaction you have with the main chain. And now it was already mentioned that we had this scaling Ethereum hackathon a couple of weeks ago, and one of the solutions there for Raiden was to actually port the Raiden contracts to be deployed on Optimism, which would make it much cheaper to interact and open channels and close channels, etc. And we also have in the past talked to Alex from CK Sync about options to have Raiden potentially on top of CK Sync. So I believe that I don't see I see here a lot of potential for also collaboration and what do you call it, we can help each other out. It's not all about who makes the solution that will be the final payment solution, but also about coming up with a setup where we have a solution that can handle these many payments that we hope that blockchains will power in the future.
Yeah, exactly. It's about adoption as well, right? Actually getting real world payments happening, like for your groceries. Maybe you pay a couple of dollars for your groceries. You don't want to pay a lot of fees or wait a long time. So it would be great to see some of these solutions kind of coming together and balancing out some of their trade-offs, maybe you could call it. It kind of leads me to another good topic that I hope we can get some collaborative discussion around. If there's for ZK rollups and optimistic rollups, if there's a way, a better kind of solution? Is one better for payment? Is one better for putting EVM computation on? Is one more suited for putting like a state channel network on top of? What are the drawbacks, or what are the strengths on those? If anyone has some thoughts there they'd like to dive into.
Maybe I can start and then.
Yeah, go for it.
So, okay. So I think that like the topic that you touched before is one thing that we mentioned before was the capital efficiency. I think that we expect to see, at least what I would expect to see in the long term, is that applications that care the most, well, one option is to say everything will be only live on a single network and nothing else will be nowhere else. But if you expect a world where there is a fragmentation and applications not necessarily live on Starknet or zk-Sync or Optimism and so on, then you probably should expect that applications that care about, or that the users of those applications care about transferring liquidity between chains to have more liquidity on solutions that are capable of taking out liquidity fast. So, for example, if I am, I don't know if I can imagine Aave or Uniswap, and I want to imagine how large liquidity providers will manage their funds, then they would probably want to put more funds on places where they can take them out faster, right? So it means that you probably have bias towards those solutions that from one side enable like high level of security, so you are ready to risk billions of dollars there, and from the other side those users are capable of taking them out really, really fast if they need to layer 1 or to another layer 2. So given all that, I think that there is a bias, at least in my opinion, towards having this type of applications running on top of Zkroll eventually, because I'm expecting this to be like, this is to get like the highest score in security and the highest score on the speed to take the funds out to somewhere else if they need to. So that's some bias there. Yeah, if others want to comment or add.
Yeah, so I think that so you talked a little bit about the UX benefits, and that's really important. I think that optimistic roles do have a solution to bypass the 7-day withdrawal period for fungible tokens. So they have a liquidity provider solution so that you could technically withdraw quite quickly, but this doesn't apply to non-fungible tokens, like such as NFTs. So if you're building an NFT project, you probably would not opt for an optimistic role. And one example is actually a real life example. There was the recent Meebit launch by Larva Labs, and the price was around 2 ETH, and I didn't have like 2 ETH just lying around, so I had to quickly withdraw it from a Urine Vault in like a minute, and then I had to go buy the Meebit. And this couldn't have happened if an NFT was built on a secret rollup, and I had to withdraw from in situations where you have to withdraw very quickly. So there is that sort of UX gap between Optimus and ZK rollups. But also ZK rollups do, like I said before, offer more scalability, and they do so more TPS is like what colloquially, like how you would say it, and also more security. Optimus rollups are secured by like game theoretic crypto economic securities, but ZK rollups are secured by math and cryptography, and we inherit the security of layer 1, so it's equivalent. And so why build on an Optimus rollup? So before, the answer was because it was really easy to be EVM compatible. Optimus rollups are EVM compatible, which means that all these DeFi projects, all the projects built on Ethereum using Solidity, all the infrastructure and tooling around it, Hardhat, Brownie, Truffle, and Etherscan, like all the infrastructure that all in Ethereum is easily portable to optimistic roles. Like with this asterisk, but it's relatively, they're known to be EVM compatible, which means these contracts that have been audited and battle tested for months and hold billions of dollars and like have stood the test of time and went through audits and are known to be relatively secure, they can just directly port it. And that's a huge benefit because the developer doesn't have to rewrite something in a different language. And initially, so that's why people thought that optimistic rollups would win first. And later on, after ZK rollups went through sort of breakthroughs in cryptography, then ZK rollups would win in the end game. I think this was said by Vitalik. But we actually had a breakthrough at ZK Sync where we found out how to build the ZK EVM. So now we can offer EVM compatibility in our ZK rollups. So, and if you want to know more about how that is done technically, you can also watch a video that Alex did for ETH Global.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to go back and get that link and watch that to learn a bit more. So maybe moving back to Polygon with Mikhail. So Polygon is a protocol and a framework for building and connecting Ethereum-compatible blockchain networks and aggregating scalable solutions on Ethereum, supporting a multi-chain Ethereum ecosystem. Can you tell me, or tell me and the audience a bit more about Polygon building a multi-chain Ethereum and your vision behind it and how it all kind of connects together?
Sure. And I can just briefly touch upon the previous question because that's the same basically line of thought. So with Polygon, as I said already, we believe right now Ethereum is at this stage of intense innovation, I would say. So what we have this grand vision of Ethereum basically becoming a global permissionless alternative to the traditional financial system and even to the way we collaborate as humans, the way we, organize ourselves, etc. So it's like a very, very powerful, very transformative idea. And we at Polygon strongly believe in that idea. And that being said, we will need a very powerful and mature infrastructure to actually realize that ambitious and grand goal. And that infrastructure will have to be able to host, 1 billion plus people for sure. And that being said, Ethereum is basically 5 years old, and Ethereum scaling solutions are basically 3 years old or 4 years old. The reason I am saying all of this is that we believe that we're still very, very early, I would say, in terms of building that infrastructure that we need to actually achieve this grand and ambitious goal. That's why at Polygon we kind of decided to follow that permissionless approach that Ethereum also followed from the beginning. And there's that famous misquote that says, let 1,000 flowers bloom. So that's what we want to actually do at Polygon. We want to encourage innovation. We want to encourage all of these approaches and help kind of facilitate this innovation that's happening in this period. And yes, that brings us to basically Ethereum as a multi-chain that has multiple different types of chains, multiple types of scaling solutions, whether they're based on ZK proofs, whether they're based on optimistic proofs, whether they're actually sidechains which are not directly deriving security. So they're not layer 2 in a strict sense, but they are scalability solution. I think this should be non-controversial, I guess. And all these solutions we consider them very, very valuable to the ecosystem. And we believe we might come up with we will definitely come up with better solutions or improve the existing ones, as other panelists already said previously. Rollups are a hot topic, I would say, for a while already. But similar like with Plasma, we went through that whole hype cycle of Ethereum scaling solutions, and we back in the days, Plasma was also the hot topic, and then along the way, the general community and developer community becomes aware of some trade-offs that are necessary there, like with any scaling implementation. And for example, now we're kind of seeing finally that rollups have that fundamental limitation when it comes to throughput, when it comes to scaling. They offer mainly, I guess, up to two orders of magnitude of improvement when it comes to throughput normally, because of this requirement to submit transaction data to the mainnet. And now we're already actively exploring, and research projects are actively exploring off-chain data availability solutions. And we at Polygon also working actively on our own solution that we will, I believe, announce pretty soon. So to kind of summarize all of this, we at Polygon believe that we are still very early. We want to be some sort of a hub for innovation, for Ethereum scaling and infrastructure innovation and development. We want to offer our own solutions. We want to push the frontier. We want to offer to improve existing solutions, as well as to collaborate with existing projects like Starkware, ZK Sync, or any other relevant scaling project. So yes, that's kind of the approach that we're taking, I guess.
Okay, yeah, great. Thanks for that. So maybe I'll move back to state channels. So state channels are quite different because there's not really any blocks in state channels. So I was just wondering what the strengths were of not having any blocks, and you don't necessarily have the data availability problems in the same way. And maybe you could dive a bit more into having a hub with state channels versus having a network, and what are the strengths of those two?
Sure. Yeah. So as already mentioned, like we've been working on a project for 5 years, but I also still believe we are quite in the early days in general with all scaling technology. And like one thing is what technology is ready, and another thing is where like adoption is at this moment. And like for us, adoption is definitely not where we thought it would be by now. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would have thought that everything looked very different. Like there would have been much more infrastructure running on blockchains in the real world already. But aside from that, like if we want to focus a bit on the hub structure versus a more decentralized network, and how Raiden is somewhat efficient since we don't rely on blocks or data availability. Like we basically, as I mentioned earlier, scale linearly. So the more people participating in a network, the more it's the total throughput. Thereby not said that one node can do 2,000 transactions per second, but if you have 1,000 nodes, you could have a total throughput of 2,000 transactions per second, approximately. Another thing is, like from the beginning, we've designed Raiden in a way that it's fully decentralized, so we don't rely on any centralized infrastructure or any centralized hubs, which is definitely, in retrospect, it was maybe not the best decision. We could probably have moved way faster if we had like a centralized hub that would like mediate or dispatch all transactions. But we didn't want to do that because we believed in this like fully decentralized vision from the beginning. So this is how Raiden is designed to run now. And this in the big picture, when we have a fully bootstrapped network, will also provide us with a lot of like it will be very fault tolerant, because one node going down doesn't mean anything or shouldn't mean anything. So it's we try to follow this very decentralized vision, and this also gives us a lot of fault tolerance, I would say. But yeah, it's very different from some of the newer scaling solutions indeed. So we are maybe the old school scaling solution, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it's a bit similar to the approach that the Bitcoin community took with Lightning Network, isn't it? Where they have kind of the similar overall idea to help scaling.
Yeah, exactly. And that was back then when we started designing Raiden, probably 5.5 years ago. That was what we thought was like. It was definitely the best approach to take back then, and like CK technology was basically just ideas and theory back then. So to get everything going, this was definitely the first step, and like something we sometimes talk about it a bit internally in the company is like this being the first movers. Like we can definitely see like there are a lot of cool other scalability technology as well, which I personally think is super great because it leads us in the right direction of scaling blockchain technology in general. But yeah, sometimes it's tough to see all these cool new technologies come into life as well when we've worked on this for a long time. But in the long run, I think it's a gradual, it's kind of a ladder, right? You have to start somewhere, and then we can all push each other in the right direction and hopefully learn from each other's mistakes and make some really, really good stuff in the end, because it's still early days as mentioned.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And that kind of leads on to the next section that I wanted to touch on, which is drawbacks that your solution might be in the process of solving. So you mentioned a bit before, or touched briefly on channel balancing and things like that. Have you looked into a lot how to kind of improve on channel balancing, or maybe if anyone else wants to weigh in on later their kind of challenges that they're in the process of solving as well? It'd be interesting to learn about.
Yeah, so if I can just if I continue, like in general, as I mentioned, we have this like Raiden is quite liquid, like capital inefficient. So we're currently looking into ways that we can potentially activate some of the locked up funds. Like you deposit an amount into a channel, and right now this amount is just held in a smart contract that you will then will be used in the end when you do settlements. But we're looking into ways that we could potentially activate this, or at least as an opt-in for the user to potentially put it in, I don't know, a Yearn vault or something where it can generate some kind of passive income while the funds are locked up. Like we try to look into ways that we can make it more attractive for people to have funds locked up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that you might be able to earn passive income while you're also going off chain with your tokens.
It kind of gives double value, because you basically, as soon as you deposit, let's say you deposit 100 DAI into a Raiden channel, you basically get these 100 DAI you get as a balance proof that you can spend with your partner, but they still exist locked up in a smart contract as well. So you basically could spend these 100, put them into a Yearn vault in the meantime and earn passive income. And when you take them out again, you potentially made some earnings there.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so I'm going to jump forward a little bit and maybe go into, because I would like to finish around the hour. So I will want to learn a bit more. Maybe some of the other projects have opinions on how layer 2 will benefit from ETH2. Sorry. So when Ethereum goes proof of stake and there's sharding, what will change? What will stay the same there? Maybe Angela, if you have.
Yeah, sure. So I briefly alluded to it before, but basically the only thing that's limiting the scalability of the ZK rollup, which is the only scaling solution that inherits the security of Ethereum, the only thing that's limiting like the TPS that it can do is the need to publish call data to Ethereum. The need to publish some parts, the data availability guarantee, where you can prove that these are your funds so you can spend them. And so the way that, so Vitalik announced the rollup centric Ethereum roadmap. So basically the base Ethereum is sort of preparing to scale in a world where there's Ethereum and there's the rollups, and then so sharding. So the Ethereum 2 is going to come with sharding, and there's two types of sharding. There's like the data side and the execution side, but it's most likely that they're just going to do the data sharding. So this will mean that cheap call data. So this basically addresses the scalability limit of ZK rollups. So in a world where there are a lot of ZK rollups and call data is really cheap, we can achieve the scalability that we need to bring Ethereum to billions of people at low cost.
Cool. Maybe Mikhail or Avihu, do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, I can basically completely agree with the previous panelist. E2.0, the E2.0 kind of keeps pivoting because it's like a very, very innovative and complex architecture, and researchers are doing their best basically to come up with something that is optimal, taking all factors and the whole thriving ecosystem into account. But where we are right now is that we will probably move forward with this thing that we call the merge, which is basically a merging take that is living on the Beacon chain at the moment, merging it with Ethereum 1x or Ethereum layer 1, Ethereum mainnet, that is running right now using proof of work based consensus algorithm. And that is the first step, and that will not affect significantly, I would say, scaling solutions that are building on top of Ethereum. Nothing fundamental or nothing will change dramatically. Sharding, if like the current, I guess, approach or opinion is that we should move forward with this data availability sharding, in which scenario Ethereum 2.0 will effectively become data availability provider with 64 shards that are running in parallel and offering several, I don't know, megabytes maybe per second of data storage, decentralized data storage. And then on top of that, a multitude of rollups and generally other scaling solutions can live. And that is the direction that we're moving currently. So in that setup, E2.0 and these scaling solutions are very much complementary, and they kind of make each other stronger. So Ethereum 2.0, if you're moving again with data availability sharding, we don't have enshrined execution engine like we have with Ethereum 1.x. So 2.0, these shards are not, how can I say, are not a complete system in that sense without scaling solutions built on top. On the other hand, scaling solutions will benefit from that increased data availability capacity of those 64 shards, and that will significantly improve throughput. So I guess it's a nice E2.0 in its current form, at least, and scaling solutions built on top are a very nice match, I would say.
Yeah, so it sounds like in general, I think all layer 2 solutions will mostly benefit from ETH2. What about for state channels? Do you think, or Jacob, do you think that the Raiden network would live on a singular shard, or would there be like cross shard kind of Raiden networks, or how would that work?
I think that's a good question. I think in general, it makes more sense to have like Raiden on one shard, since it's not like, since as soon as you open your channels, it is basically off chain, everything that's going on, or even build it as mentioned earlier on top of some even cheaper ZK or like in general just roll-up solutions that makes it even cheaper for the user to open and close channels. So like from our perspective, F2 is just a very welcome upgrade to the network, both from an environmental perspective, but also from the perspective of just making it easier to build good scaling solutions. And yeah, so for us, it's not going to be a big difference, but anything that makes the experience better for the user and make it cheaper to interact with Raiden is a plus for us.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like it'll be great for all the users that hopefully do payments on Ethereum and Layer 2 in the future. I want to do just a couple quick minutes, maybe give a chance for some questions. So if anyone is watching, feel free to put a question in the YouTube chat. And there is a question here for Mikhail about that says, for Matic, what is the time frame we are looking for its mass adoption? A bit of a tough question, but if you would like to dive into it.
Yeah, probably next week. Of course, I mean, as we said previously, we believe that we are still in very early stages of Ethereum scaling, and we really, really strongly believe that Ethereum has the potential to actually become this alternative global permissionless financial system and social coordinator machine. So it's like a very, very powerful, very transformative idea. And just people, I think, need to be aware that it will definitely take time to build a solid, robust infrastructure that can actually support that big dream. But again, like at Polygon, we are happy to and humbled to see that we are, I guess, by far the most adopted scaling solution in the Ethereum ecosystem by far, with more than 400 applications and I believe now more than 1 million unique wallets and etc. So all our metrics are, I would say, really, don't want to use the term impressive, but we are generally very happy with where we are at the moment. And but again, on the other side, it is because we are dead set kind of on shipping something that both developers and users can use today. So currently we are offering two scalability solutions. One is our Plasma chain, which is a proper layer 2 solution, if you will, and fully relies on Ethereum security. And the other one is our POS chain, which is what we refer to as a commit chain. It's some sort of side chain that, again, kind of relies on Ethereum, but it's not really a layer 2 in a strict sense. So it has its own validator set. And at the end of the day, it relies on the security of proof of stake that is implemented on that specific chain. Again, that security is pretty strong, with near 4 billion staked on that specific chain by validators, and some other risk, basically mitigations and security aspects that we introduced. But again, like, there are certain trade-offs with that solution that is seeing huge deal of adoption. So I guess my point is, at this point in time, solutions that can really accommodate huge number of applications, huge number of users, are willingly accepting some sort of trade-offs on the other hand, like our POS chain. So we're looking forward to the future where we will be able to support such high level of activity, huge number of applications, huge number of users, without sacrificing any of these major requirements like security. So yes, that is something, I guess maybe the answer is a bit broader than maybe required, but the point of this is that definitely there is still a lot of work ahead of us as a research and development community to actually build these again, robust and secure solutions that are at the same time very scalable to the level that we actually want them to be. So the point is, we are still very early. I know it was very popular that saying that this is the year of Ethereum layer 2s and Ethereum scaling. It's not, unfortunately, but we are working hard. We will reach there. We are very, very bullish, very optimistic about the future, but it will still take a lot of work.
Great. Yeah, I'm also optimistic about the future of layer 2. So thanks for the answer. Thank you for the question. I'm just going to do one last question just before we wrap up. So we have a question here that says, just to be clear, with the upcoming Raiden Light Client release, not only will an individual be able to open a channel, mediate payments, collect fees, and transfer tokens, but also in the future gain yield from something like Yearn? It's a question for Jacob.
Yeah, so that will not be part of the light client. I was just mentioning a potential improvement or solution that we've been discussing to this capital inefficiency problem. So the short answer will be no. That's not part of the upcoming light client release. Yeah, I think there's not much else to mention there, but like we are soon releasing a light client on the mainnet that will allow you to use Raiden in any MetaMask supported browser. So at least from a user perspective, that would be a huge step in the right direction. But it's not like you could build this Yearn stuff as a like activating your funds. You could do that with external smart contracts, so you don't necessarily need to change the Raiden smart contract. So it could be something that we can add later on.
Okay, yeah, that was sort of what I was thinking would be similar as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the light client that's mentioned. So it'll be a good user experience improvement. So I think we'll probably finish up with questions. So just to summarize, we've kind of touched on the major strategies to scaling Ethereum, Plasma, rollups, state channels. Feels like a lot of that was theorized a number of years ago is kind of coming together in the Ethereum community, which is fun. So I hope that with this panel, some of the live viewers and hopefully more viewers to watch the video in the future have gained a bit of a better understanding of the different approaches to scaling Ethereum. And I really want to do a big thank you to those who've watched, and also a big thank you to, of course, the panel participants. So thank you, Angela from CK Sync. Thank you, Jacob from Raiden Network. Thank you, Mikhail from Polygon, and Avihu from Starkware. So really big thank you, guys. I really appreciate it, and it was a really fun panel to come on and moderate.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So with that, I